Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to the Wealthy Trustee Workshop webinar. So you guys are here. We are going to dive in. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Tonight, you guys are going to be learning what is a trust entity and how you can use that entity in order to build wealth, okay? So a little bit about me. I am Christina Yvette. I am a trust strategist, okay? So I have been a trustee since 2015. And I became a trustee by way of real estate. So I was actually a registered nurse. And me being a nurse, I was actually working 5 days a week, 12-hour shifts. I was literally in the rat race, living paycheck to paycheck. And at that time, I was young. I was 25 years old. I had a 1-year-old son, and I was tired of spending more time with my coworkers than my 1-year-old son. So what I decided to do was I told myself I needed an extra stream of income, right? I couldn't depend on that paycheck from the hospital anymore. So I said I need to find, a way to make money. And I was actually driving to work one day and I heard on the radio this guy say, "You want to learn how to flip houses? Come to this seminar." So I said, "Okay, yeah, sure, why not?" And so I signed up for this 3-day seminar. And in the seminar, I learned more things about real estate and how to actually invest and how to, become an investor and flip houses than I did ever. So I signed up for mentorship, and within 6 months of me actually signing up for mentorship, I was able to buy my first property. And so I bought this little rundown 2-bedroom, 1-bath house here in Miami. And I bought that house for $89,000, you guys. So that was back in 2015. You can't get a house for that price anymore. So I bought it for $89,000. I fixed it up, sold it for $235,000. But before I bought it, my mentor told me, "You need to put this house in a trust." And I didn't understand. I didn't know about trust, right? So I didn't understand why he said that. But my mentor, he had thousands of properties and they were all in trust. So I actually trusted him to know that he was giving me the right information. And at that time, I took his advice and I put that property into a trust. Why? Two things. One is because I didn't want anyone to be able to sue me and take that property from me. And I didn't want to be taken advantage of because this was my first fix and flip. And so I was dealing with contractors, subcontractors, the city, things of that nature. I was treading in unfamiliar territory. So because I was experiencing that, I wasn't going to take any chances. I wanted the most protection possible, especially because this was my first investment. So with that being said, I actually put that property into a trust and I became a trustee. And I've been dealing in trust ever since. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to teach you guys a little bit about trust, right? There's a lot to learn, but I'm just going to give you some foundational information so that you can better understand this type of entity as well as see if it's something that you want to incorporate in your business or in your family dynamics, okay? So if you guys can come on camera, if you're able to, I'm going to make this as interactive as possible. So let's see who we have here. We have Britt. We have Chris, Colin, we have Connie, we have Desmond, we have Divine, we have Dwayne, we have Erica, we have Eric, we have iPhone. I'm not sure who iPhone is. We have Javier, Jennifer, Mario, Nicole, Prince, Renica, Robin, Ronald, Roslyn, Vernon, Tasheen, West Hickasy Trust, Yolanda, and what is it, Mr. Boken. All right, guys. So anyways, we're going to dive in. This is going to be a short presentation. Like I said, I'm just going to show you guys, just tell you guys a little bit about, what a trust is and how you can use it in your business or your family in order for you to be able to save on taxes, in order for you to be able to, protect the assets that you have now and protect yourself from any type of, litigation or anything like that. Okay. So let's dive in. Allow me to share my screen here. All right. So here we go. So the first thing I want to tell you guys is what is a trust, right? So a lot of us, we have heard the term, trust. We've heard the term trust fund. And so a lot of us, we know what it is and we don't know what it is, right? And so I just want to tell you guys that a trust is an entity, right? It's a living, breathing entity, and you are a living, breathing entity, right? So a trust is pretty much just like you. And so with this trust, there's a lot that you can do. So it can do anything that you can do, which is what you want, right? So if you can, build credit, a trust can build credit. If you could buy a house, a trust can also buy a house, right? So there's no real limitations to what a trust can actually do. So now with this type of entity, the way you structure it is you structure it as a private contract, okay? And so there are several different parts to this contract. But the first two parts that I want to tell you guys about is the declaration, where you're declaring what it is. So you're declaring that it is a trust, and then you're going to declare what it is not. So you're going to declare that it is not an LLC or a corporation or any of those types of entities, okay? And then the second part of it is the bylaws or the indenture, where you have all the rules and regulations of how you want this trust to operate, okay? So there are several different parties involved with this trust contract, which we'll go through, right? So hold on, all right, so there are several different parties involved. So the first one is the grantor. The grantor is the creator of the trust. So that is the individual who is establishing the trust and specifically establishing it for the benefit of somebody else, and that somebody else is the beneficiary. Then you have the trustee. So the trustee is the individual who is the controller of the trust, okay? So that is the individual who is controlling the assets. That is the individual who we call the fiduciary, which is like the authorized signer, right? They're making all the best decisions for this entity that can't make decisions for itself. And the person who has control of the assets and operates the trust on a day-to-day basis, okay? And then the next party is the beneficiary. So the beneficiary is what we call the inheritor of the trust. So that is the individual who's going to be benefiting from the trust. So they're going to be receiving distributions. They are also going to be inheriting the trust once the trust is terminated. So once the trust no longer exists, all of those assets that are inside of the trust go to the beneficiaries. So there's several different types of trust. There's hundreds of types of trust, right? Some of them are revocable, land, living, charitable, things like that. So I want to tell you guys about a few different categories of this type of entity can fall under, okay? So the first category I want to tell you guys about is express versus implied. So an express trust is a written trust, you guys. So that is the actual contract that you see that's in black and white. It's on paper. You sign that you actually agree to this contract, okay? And on the contrary to that, you have an implied trust, which is an oral trust, right? So that is where you have an oral agreement between the grantor and the trustee, okay? So the next category that I want to tell you guys about is simple versus complex. So with a simple trust is shorter in nature, and the trustee is required to give distributions to the beneficiary. So they'll be receiving things on either a monthly basis or quarterly or annually. And then on the other side of that is complex. So with a complex trust, it's longer in nature, has more provisions, and with that one, the trustee is not required to give out distributions to the beneficiaries of the trust. The next type of trust I want to tell you guys about, and these are all categories, right? Is a discretionary versus non-discretionary. So with a discretionary trust, that means that you as a trustee have full discretion to be able to make decisions for the trust that's in the best interest of the trust, even though it's not inside of the trust. So inside of the trust, you have what we call trustee powers, where you list everything that the trustees can do. But let's just say that there's something that's not listed there. Well, because it's a discretionary trust, you are able to make those decisions. On the contrary to that, you have non-discretionary, which means that the trustee is actually not able to make those decisions or to carry out certain tasks that's not inside of the contract, okay? So next we have statutory versus non-statutory. So with a statutory trust, that is a trust where you have all of the state statutes and codes, okay? So every single state, they have their own specific laws, and those are statutes and codes, and those statutes and codes are going to be embedded in this type of trust, okay? So that means that if let's just say you live in Georgia, right? Then all of those state statutes and codes are inside of that trust. That means you can only use that trust in the state of Georgia, okay? So 9 times out of 10, those types of trusts are actually registered with the state. So they actually become a part of the public records, which means everyone's going to know the existence of your trust. So it's actually very limited, and it allows the state to be able to regulate your trust, right? On the contrary to that, you have non-statutory, which means that there are no state statutes and codes embedded inside your contract. So what that means is that the jurisdiction is the common law jurisdiction, which is what you want. And with that type of entity, it's not going to be registered with the state. So it's not going to be a part of the public records. It's going to remain private, which is what you guys want, okay? And then the next type or categories of trust is revocable versus irrevocable. So with a revocable trust, what we're talking about here is we are referring to the grantor of the trust. Remember, the grantor is the person who created the trust, okay? So that person established the trust, and with a revocable trust, that means that they have what we call revocability. So what does that mean? That means that they are able to revoke things. So if they were to put assets into the trust, like a house, they can revoke it and take the assets out, okay? They could terminate the trust whenever they want. They can make changes or amendments to the trust. They could remove or change the beneficiaries and the trustees, okay? And so because they can make all of these changes, during their lifetime, creditors can actually come after that type of trust because it's seen as an extension of you, right? It's seen as an alter ego. So your assets are not fully protected. And if they're not fully protected and you end up in litigation, then what could happen is the judge in that court proceeding can actually pierce through your trust. And you don't want that to happen, because if they pierce through your trust, then your trust becomes a part of the public records during that, that court proceeding, which means that everyone is going to know the contents of your trust, who the beneficiaries are, what assets are inside of the trust, the net worth of the trust, things of that nature, okay? So on the contrary to that, you have the irrevocable trust. So with the irrevocable trust, we're referring only specifically to the grantor. So the grantor has irrevocability, which means that they cannot terminate the trust, they cannot remove assets that they put inside of the trust, they cannot remove or change beneficiaries and trustees, they cannot make any changes to the actual trust, okay? So with that being said, because they have no power and no control over the trust that they created, then their creditors are, it's very challenging for their creditors to come after this type of trust because it's irrevocable. And which means that if it were to end up in litigation, the judge 9 times out of 10 decides not to pierce through that type of trust, okay? Which means that you're, protected in the sense that it's not going to end up in the public records, okay? So with that being said, let's move on and let's talk about how you can actually create a trust, okay? So the first thing you want to do is you want to determine the type of trust that you want to create. I just gave you guys a list of different categories of trust, right? And so the type of trust that I recommend is that you have an express trust that is non-statutory, that is discretionary in nature, and that it is irrevocable, okay, and complex. So that's the type of trust from all those categories that I mentioned that you should have, okay? That's the one that's going to allow you the most protection, and that's the one that we call the bulletproof trust, which is what you want, right? You want to be able to protect your assets at all cost, okay? So now that you've determined which type of trust is best for you, then you want to actually start the process of creating the trust. So you want to start to name the trust, okay? So when you are naming the trust, what you want to do is you want to do two things. You do not want to actually name the trust after yourself, so avoid that, because you are using this type of trust specifically, one, to protect the assets. And so you do not want people out here in society to know that you are associated with this asset. So it's a dead giveaway if you decide to name the trust after yourself, because now they're going to know that you're associated, okay? So it's best practice for you to name it. You can use initials, you can use other non-related names when you are naming this type of entity. The second thing is that you don't have to have the word trust in the actual name of the trust. One, because remember, we're going back to protecting our assets. And so you don't even want individuals to know that it is a trust, right? So they're going to know that it's an entity, but they don't need to know what type of entity, okay? So now that you've named your trust, you're going to appoint the different parties involved in your trust, okay? So the first one is the grantor. So if you're creating an irrevocable trust, then the grantor and the trustee cannot be the same individual. So you want yourself to be the trustee, so you're going to have to appoint someone else to be the grantor. Remember, with an irrevocable trust, the grantor has no power and no control, so you don't have to worry about that individual that you appoint having access to your assets, okay? So the grantor, you want that to be an individual who's 18 years and older, who is able to actually notarize the trust with you or for you. And with that type of with the grantor, you want that person to be preferably non-related, right? So you could choose a relative, but best practice is for you to choose someone who is not related to you, okay? And then now the next one is the trustee. So you're going to appoint yourself to be the trustee so you can have all the power and control over this trust and the assets that you put inside of it. Then the beneficiaries are your children. So, or they could be other entities, okay? And with the beneficiaries, like I said, those are going to be the inheritors of the trust. And then the last one is the successor. So with the successor, that is going to be a successor trustee, which is the person who's going to take over after you. Remember, your trust is designed to outlive you, which means that you need to already have someone in position ready to take over the moment that you either become incapacitated, you expire, or you decide to resign from the trust. Someone needs to be able to take over and continue to operate the trust, okay? Number three is actually creating the trust agreement. So you're going to create it in a contract style. You're going to have all the rules and regulations, which we call provisions, inside of the trust of how you actually want this trust to be ran, okay? And you're going to have what we call spendthrift provisions, where you're going to be putting stipulations in there of how you want the beneficiaries to be able to utilize the money that they're going to be receiving from the trust, right? Because you are right now intentional about building this generational wealth, right? And so you want to have those spendthrift provisions in there so that you can actually control the money from the grave, right? So that you can tell them, hey, you have to spend the money on real estate and stocks and not on, frivolous traveling, okay? So After you've determined all of the, provisions that you want inside of the trust, you finalize it, then what you need to do in order to legalize the trust is you need to get it notarized, okay? So it needs to be notarized, and the signatures that are required is the grantor and trustee signatures, okay? And then once it is notarized, it is legal, and now you're able to operate the trust. So now that you're in the position of beginning to operate the trust, the first thing that you want to do is you want to open up that trust fund, okay? You want to open up that bank account. And so there's two things that you're going to need. One, you're going to need a certificate of trust, okay? So the certificate of trust is actually proof of identity that the trust exists, okay? So just like how you walk around with a driver's license, well, the trust is also going to walk around with proof of identity, which is a certificate of trust. The second thing is an EIN number for banking purposes. And so then you're going to open up a bank account. So it could be with any financial institution. So it could be with a bank. It could be with a brokerage firm. It could also be with a credit union, okay? And then the types of accounts that you can open is a checking account, savings account, money market account, cash management account, any of those types of accounts, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to fund the trust, okay? So you can fund it with, whatever the minimum is. So usually with these bank accounts, they'll have a minimum of, $100, $300, just depending on the bank, okay? So you're going to go ahead and fund the trust fund. And then after you're done with opening up that bank account, what you want to do is you want to transfer assets into the trust. This is the absolute most important step. Why? Because you have just created this trust specifically so that you can protect your assets. But your assets actually need to be inside of the trust in order for your assets to be protected. So if you skip this step, trust me, you are doing yourself a major disservice. So what does that exactly look like? Well, let's just say that you have a primary residence, which is your house, right? So with your house, a lot of us, we don't know that it's a part of the public records. So we can literally go to whatever county, whatever state and county that you live in, and we can do a property search. And what we can do is we can put in your first and last name, and every single property that you own in that county will show up. Or vice versa, we can put in the address of the property, and then your name, your contact information will show up. So anybody and everyone is able to know and understand that you are the owner of that property. So what you want to do is you want to be able to remove yourself from the public records and remove yourself as the owner of that property. Why? Because in the event that somebody decides to sue you, guess what? They can snatch that house away from you, and you don't want that to happen. So don't wait until you're getting sued in order to protect yourself from a lawsuit. So what you want to do to protect yourself from any future lawsuits or anything like that is actually transfer that property into the trust. So the way that you do that is you have to actually redeed the property. So the way that we do it is through a quit claim deed, okay? So we quit claim the property or our ownership interest into the name of the trust. So we're actually gifting it, okay? So we're gifting it from ourselves, or if you're married, is husband and wife is gifting that property into the name of the trust. And so now with that quitclaim deed, you're going to go ahead and submit it with the county. The county is going to register the new deed, and now they're going to update the public records to show that the new owner of that property is the trust, okay? And now you have some type of protection in the event of any types of lawsuits or anything like that. So that is the most important step, because if that property is not in the name of the trust, then there's so many things that can happen. So let's talk about it, right? So what can a trust actually protect you from, right? So asset protection is the number one reason why you actually want to set up this trust. It can protect you from bankruptcies, from divorce, from foreclosures, from heavy taxation, from lawsuits, from probate, right? So let's talk about a few of them, right? The first one that I want to talk about is heavy taxation, right? So with heavy taxation, what happens is a lot of us were giving away 50% of our income. Let's just be honest, especially if you're in like California or New York, one of those states, right? And so what you want to do is you want to be able to reduce your taxes utilizing this type of entity. So one of the trusts that we use within our structure is a nonprofit trust, okay? And with that trust, because it's nonprofit, you don't have to pay federal taxes, right? You're exempt from paying federal taxes as long as the income that's coming in is a donation. So the way that you're going to actually save on your taxes is you're going to be donating to this trust so that you can reduce your tax liability. So how much can you donate, right? Well, if you're a W-2 employee, you can donate up to 60% of your annual gross income. So if make $100,000 salary in your career, then what happens is you're taxed on that 100,000, right? But if you have this nonprofit tax exempt trust, then what's going to happen is you can actually donate 60% or $60,000 of your salary to your trust. And then now, instead of you being taxed on $100,000, you'll now be taxed on $40,000. So do you know how much money you're actually going to be saving? You're going to be saving thousands of dollars, which is actually going to put you in a better financial position. That better financial position is going to allow you to do a lot of other things with this, excess cash that you have, which is you can, acquire more assets and do other things, okay? So you want to consider that when you are strategizing for the future. So let's talk about divorce, right? Because divorce is a transfer of wealth, you guys. And a lot of us, we don't think so, but it is, right? And so with that transfer of wealth, usually what happens is you have a divorce, which is a lawsuit. It's between two spouses, okay? And unfortunately, sometimes one of the spouses will end up with everything and the other spouse with nothing. I've seen it, right? And so the way that you can protect yourself is with this divorce, because it's a lawsuit and because it's, in your personal name, anything and everything that's in your personal name is up for grabs with this divorce. So the way that you protect yourself is by having your assets inside of a trust, because that trust is a separate entity from you. So that trust cannot be dragged into the divorce, which is exactly what you want if you're in, the business of actually protecting yourself, okay? So just think about that for the future. And let's talk about lawsuits, right? So with lawsuits, right, you want to actually protect yourself from a lawsuit before it happens. So let's just say that you have a business and somebody decides to sue your business, right? So with your business, once again, it's a part of the public records. Anyone and everyone is able to see that you are the owner of that business, right? All they have to do is just go to the Secretary of State. They could do a simple Google, things of that nature, to find out who the authorized member or shareholder or president, of that business is, okay? And so if somebody decides to sue your company, then what can happen is if your company goes through this litigation and you lose, then if the company is unable to fulfill that judgment, then what could happen is they could come after you personally. Why? Because you have some form of liability with this company, okay? The company doesn't have full liability, okay? So with that being said, if they decide to come after you, then what could happen is if your company is not able to fulfill that judgment, that judge can actually pierce through the corporate veil that protects you and come after you as the owner. If they come after you as the owner, then all of your personal assets or everything that you have in your name is up for grabs, meaning that the judge can decide to garnish your W-2 income. The judge can decide to garnish whatever is in your bank account, or actually seize your assets, meaning, your house, your car, things like that, in order to cover that lawsuit. So you don't want that to happen. So you need to put yourself in a position to where you are protecting yourself. So the way that you do that in this scenario is you remove yourself as the owner of that company, and now you put a business trust as the new owner of that business. So that will be your first layer of protection. And we'll talk about that further in a minute. And then the next thing that I want to tell you guys about is probate. So first I have a question. So my question to you guys is, if you have a house, right? And this house, right, is in your personal name. And let's just say that you have a will, right? So in your will, you put, I want my son to inherit the house, right? So, and let's just say you didn't wake up tomorrow. how do you expect that house to be transferred from your personal name into the name of your son? So come off mute and let me hear your answers. Anybody?
You're gonna have to go to court.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You're gonna have to go to court. So now that means that you knew that you wanted your child to inherit your house. But unfortunately, now it's going to be up to a judge if your son or daughter actually gets your property, which is extremely devastating for a parent, especially if you worked, 40 years, and, paid off this house, and now you're not even sure if your children are going to be able to have possession over their inheritance, right? So what you want to do is you want to avoid that entire process, right? So a trust can actually help you avoid probate. And the way that that happens, hold on, let me put my screen back on here. Let's see here. Here it is. So the way that that happens is, you know, the way that that happens is, let's just say that you actually, you set up this will and you thought that the will was good enough, right? But the will can't own anything, right? The will is not like a trust. Some people, they get confused and they think that the will is good enough, but it's not. The will end up in probate, okay? So you set up this will, you had a house, you had a car, you have a bank account with $1 million in there. And so you think that this will is going to be able to help with the transfer of the wealth that you've accumulated, right? But in fact, what's going to happen is if you didn't wake up tomorrow, then all your assets are going to end up in probate. And so what probate is, it's the court process that you have to go through, which is the probate court. So now what's going to happen is whatever state that you live in, that state is going to assign you an estate. So they're going to create an estate for you. So you can either decide, I am going to get my affairs in order and I'm going to create my own estate, or you can wait until you die and then you can have, the state of Louisiana go ahead and create that for you, right? So you really do not want to wait for that second option. So let me tell you about that option. So the state actually creates an estate for you. Then they put all of your assets inside of that estate. And now your estate needs to be represented by a probate attorney and represented in probate court. Okay, so that's what it looks like. And so what happens is the judge is going to pay off all your debt first. Okay, so that means they're going to pay off the credit card debt, the student loan debt, the car debt, and whatever else other debt you had. If you had, insurance, medical bills, nursing home, all that stuff, right? So all of that gets paid out first or deducted from your estate, okay? And then the next thing that happens is then the probate attorney needs to get paid and the probate court takes their fees. And once all of that is said and done, whatever is left over is what your children get. So unfortunately, your children get the leftovers in this whole probate process. And I have seen it with my own two eyes where the debt is so much that the judge is forced to actually sell the properties, right? So now your children cannot keep mom and dad's house because the hospital bill, the nursing home bill, all of these things was accumulated. And so they had to sell the house in order for those proceeds to go to the debt. So you don't want that to happen because now your children are losing their inheritance and you are dragging them through this probate process when you already knew that you wanted them to inherit your assets, right? And so the only solution to that is you actually getting your affairs in order and setting up your trust and creating your own estate, right? And then you putting your assets in there, you naming your children as the beneficiary, because now this entire probate process is going to be avoided. This is the only way in order to bypass probate, is by having everything held in a trust. Because now, if you if you didn't wake up tomorrow and you didn't have any assets in your name, right, then your debt dies with you, right? So the credit cards, the student loans, all those things, they die with you, right? Because you didn't have anything in your personal name. Everything was in the name of the trust. And the trust is designed to outlive you, okay? Which is what you want. So now let's talk about the wealth building formula, you guys. So I have three pillars here. The first one is structure. The second one is credit. The third one is invest. So let's talk about structure. Structure is super important, okay? So when it comes to structure, the best thing that you want is to know that you need to incorporate trust within your structure. That's one. Two is that you need to have multiple trusts within your structure. Why? Because you do not want to have all of your eggs in one basket, okay? In the event that your trust is sued, you don't want to have all of your assets you don't want to have all of your assets in one trust, and that trust is being sued, because now everything is, up for grabs. So what you want to do is you want to have multiple trusts for different purposes within your structure, okay? So now with that being said, what's going to happen is this is the structure that I recommend. Okay, so I recommend that you have a business trust, that you have a private family trust, and that you have a tax exempt trust. Okay, so with that being said, the first trust is the business trust, and that is designed in order to manage other entities. Okay, so it's a beautiful trust because you can use it for two reasons. So the first one is you can use it as a holding company, and it's going to hold your business assets. So what are your business assets, right? So your business assets are your actual companies, which is your LLCs or your corporations. And then it can also hold any other business assets like, commercial property, commercial vehicles, things like that, right? So that's one way that you can use it as a holding company. And then the second way is you can use it as a business, right? So instead of you going and opening up an LLC, then what you can do is you can just run your business as a business trust. So if you're going to open up like a retail shop or, an online store, something like that, then you can set up your business trust and you can start to operate your company, okay? So that's one thing with the business trust. So now with the business trust, what you want to do is if you want to utilize it as a holding company, then it's actually going to be non-operational, meaning that its sole purpose is to manage the other entities. So its sole purpose is to manage the LLC, okay? So remember, LLC stands for Limited Liability Company, okay? So that means that the LLC, that company has limited liability, and then the other half of that liability is whoever the owner is. So if you're the owner, then you have that other limited liability, which you don't want. So what you want to do is you want to remove yourself as the owner. You want to put the business trust as the owner. The business trust is now going to have full liability, okay? So that's going to be your first layer of protection between the company and yourself, which is what you want, because in the event that that company is sued, right, and let's just say that the judge pierces through that corporate veil, instead of them coming after you, they're going to come after the business trust, okay? And remember, the business trust is non-operational, so it doesn't offer any products or services or anything like that. And you're not going to hold, that much cash in there or that many assets in there, okay? So that's specifically what it's designed for. Another beautiful thing about this entity is because it's the owner or manager of the LLC, then what can happen is those funds that are generated from the LLC can be distributed to the business trust, okay? So whatever that looks like. So now with the business trust, it actually pays taxes. So it's a for-profit entity. So it has to file a 1041, right? So just like us as individuals, we file a 1040. Well, the trust is a separate entity, so it files a 1041. So with this type of trust, you can be taxed anywhere between 10% upwards of 39%. Okay. So with this entity, the beautiful thing about it is that you spend the money first and then you're taxed on the leftovers, which is exactly what you want to do, right? So let's just say that $100,000 came in from the distribution of the LLC, right? So now the business trust has $100,000. So what's going to happen is you're going to deduct whatever the operating cost or expenses are. So let's just say it's $30,000 and now there's $70,000 that's left, right? So now the business trust has to pay taxes on that $70,000, right? Or what can happen is the business trust can distribute it to the beneficiary. So the beneficiary of the business trust, the way that we design it is we put the family trust as the beneficiary. So now that 70,000 is going to the family trust as income, and that family trust now needs to pay taxes on it, okay? So with the business trust, now there's a 0% liability because 30 of it was deducted and 70 of it was distributed. So now we're at the private family trust level, right? So now 70,000 came in, and what are we going to do, right? So we spend the money first, we're taxed on the leftovers. So out of that 70,000, whatever our operating expenses are, we can deduct it. So what does it cost in order to operate your family trust, right? Well, inside of your family trust, you have your primary residence. So with your primary residence, what is it, what is it that you pay? Because the family trust is financially responsible for that asset. So that means the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, right? The maintenance, anything that the utility bills, anything that's associated with the house, okay? So now all of that is being deducted, right? Which is what you want. So now out of that 70,000, let's just say that, 50 of it is deducted and now you have 20,000 that's left, right? So now your private family trust has to, one, file that 1041 and it's going to be taxed. So at that level, it would be taxed 10% on that 20,000. So one thing that you can do before you decide to start giving, money away to the IRS is you can initiate a donation. And so what does that look like, right? So remember, you have a nonprofit. So I recommend that everyone have a for-profit in their entity and a nonprofit within their structure, okay? So for-profit, nonprofit arm as well. So you have a nonprofit within your structure, right? So that's the tax-exempt nonprofit trust, okay? So with that trust, what you can do is you can donate so some of the money to that entity. And so now that trust is going to receive it as a donation, and it doesn't have to pay federal taxes because it's tax exempt on the federal level, okay? So with this type of trust, you can label it as a lot of things, but it is is designated as a 508c1a. So you can call it a church, you can call it a ministry, you can call it a faith-based organization, you can call it a nonprofit, whatever it is that you want to call it, okay? But it is exempt from federal taxes because of the separation between church and state, okay? So that's a beautiful thing. You can use that to your benefit. So now that, let's just say it's a 20,000 or 15, whatever you decide, right, is received as a donation, okay? So now at that level, you are done paying taxes because you're exempt. You don't have to pay any taxes on anything that you receive as a donation, okay? If you are to actually generate income for this entity, then all of the income over 5,000, you would have to end up paying taxes on it. So it just depends on how you label the money that's coming in, okay? If you label it as, as income or if you label it as a donation, okay? So like I said, with the tax exempt trust, you can actually utilize this for your benefit. So one of the things is, now that we're moving on to the second pillar, which is credit, is nonprofit grants, right? So you can actually apply for grants with this entity. The second thing is credit, right? So credit is OPM, other people's money. That's exactly what you want to do. You want to put yourself in a position to where you are actually building business credit for your business trust, right? Because what you want to do is, instead of you using your own money to generate this wealth, you want to use the bank's money. And so instead of you using your own personal credit, you want to now create a second credit profile, which is going to be the business trust now actually creating a credit profile using their EIN, right? So it's EIN based. And so what happens is, just like how your company, your LLC or corporation, how they build business credit with their EIN, you're able to do the same thing with your business trust, which is what you want to do. Why? Because businesses get higher lines of credit. So now you're going to be putting yourself in a position to where you can leverage two credit profiles, which is your personal and your business credit profile. So like I said, that's going to put you in a position to where you're using other people's money, okay? That is the fastest way that you're going to build wealth versus you using your W-2 income to build wealth, okay? So now let's move on to the next pillar, which is invest. So these are the two assets that I recommend. One asset is a life insurance policy. The second asset is real estate, right? So you have your liquid asset, and then you have your tangible, okay? So let's break it down. So the first one is an index universal life insurance policy. This also can work for a whole life policy, but primarily what it is a cash value life insurance policy, okay? So with this, what you're going to do is you're going to have your trust, primarily your family trust, be the owner of the policy, be the payer of the premiums of the policy, and be the beneficiary of the policy, okay? That's going to put you in a vital position that I'm going to talk about in just a moment. Back to the policy. So a lot of people think that with life insurance is supposed to be used when you're dead. But in reality, life insurance is supposed to be utilized when you are living. There are so many living benefits to life insurance. And a lot of us, we just don't know about it. We're not aware of it, right? And so I'm going to break down a few of them. So one thing is that your money is liquid, right? So you're able to, to pull money out of your life insurance policy pretty much whenever you want. And that is only if that cash is available to you and if it's a cash value life insurance policy, okay? Another thing is that it's seen as an asset, right? So the carriers, they see your life insurance policy as an asset. So the money that you have accumulating inside of your life insurance policy is actually going to be growing tax-free, which is what you want. You don't want to be giving away your dollars to the IRS unnecessarily, okay? So that is what you want. So now with this type of policy, remember I said that it builds cash value. So the money that you're putting into it, it's building cash inside of your policy. And what's going to happen is you're going to be earning compound interest off that cash. So primarily with an index universal life insurance policy, it actually mirrors the index. So what is an index? It's actually an indice, right? And so you have many of them. You have the Dow Jones, you have the NASDAQ, you have the S&P 500, right? So for my policies specifically, it actually tracks the S&P 500. And so what happens is the carrier is going to match what the market is doing. So if the S&P 500 is doing 10%, then guess what? The carrier is actually going to give you 10% interest on your cash value. So now you are tapping into compound interest, which is what you want. That's going to put you in a position to where you are growing your money faster than you would if it was just sitting in a bank, right? Because let's just be honest, with the banks, right? You putting majority of your hard-earned cash into these banks and you're making them richer, right? So that's one. But two, how much return are they giving you, right? So how much return are they going to be giving you? Well, the banks give you what? 0.000005, right? So you don't want to have your money just sitting there pretty much accumulating and getting nothing, right? Compounding zero. So what you want is you want majority of your money to be sitting in your cash value life insurance policies, because at that point, what's going to happen is it's going to be earning, more compound interest. It's going to be earning more interest than it would inside of the bank. Okay. So that is the position that you want to put yourself in. The next thing that you want to do is you want to put yourself in a position to where you're paying yourself first, right? So what does that look like? Well, a lot of us, right? What happens is this is what is occurring. If you are a W-2 employee, right? And let's just say you got paid today, you got paid, $5,000, right? What happened first? Well, the IRS took their deductions first, right? Then you had Social Security, Medicare, your 401k contributions, all of those deductions. And then whatever was left over from your paycheck is what was direct deposited into your bank account, okay? So that's the first thing, right? And so now that money went where? It went to, let's just say, Wells Fargo, Chase Bank. It went to your checking account, right? So it went to the bank. And like I just said, the bank is giving you 0.00000 nothing 5%, right? So the bank is actually getting richer off of the money, your hard-earned cash, that you're depositing into the bank, right? So they're out here actually giving out mortgages, giving out car loans and stuff like that, right? But not only that, right? The bank's number one investment, and you can go look this up, right? Their number one investment is life insurance. So it's what we call BOLIs, bank-owned life insurance. That is their number one investment. A lot of people think that they're making their millions or billions off of, issuing credit cards and collecting interest. No, they are making it off of the BOLIs. So if the banks are getting richer with the life insurance policies, don't you think that you also should put yourself in a position to where you're getting richer off of the life insurance policies? Yes. Okay. So now let's just say your leftovers came in. I'm sorry. So the $5,000 came in. What is the first thing that you do? It was deposited into your bank account, right? Into your checking account. And now what you do is you pay your mortgage or your rent. You pay your car loan, you go ahead and buy grocery, you put gasoline in the car, all of these things, right? So you pay everyone else first before yourself, okay? And so now at the end of the week, you only have $1,000 left. And what do you do with that $1,000, right? You just let it sit in your checking account. So what you could do with that $1,000 is you could actually park it inside of your life insurance policy, right? And then allow it to accumulate cash value, allow it to actually accumulate cash value and earn compound interest. So that's one thing, right? But let's just say that you decided to really adopt this concept of pay yourself first. So what happens is that $5,000 that came in, and this is over time. This is not, a overnight thing, okay? So over time, you can put yourself in the position to where the money that is coming in, right? That $5,000, instead of you paying your mortgage first, instead of you paying, the utility bills and the gasoline and the car note and all that stuff first, paying all of those companies first, you decided to pay you first. And the way that you're paying you first is by putting that money into your private bank, which is your life insurance policy. So now that $5,000 that came in, and what's going to happen is you're going to put it into your life insurance policy, and now your cash value went up by $5,000, right? Versus what it would have been, which is $1,000. Okay, so now instead of your cash value going up by $1,000 after you pay all your bills, it's going to go up to $5,000 before you pay your bills, right? But that $5,000 that's in there, what's going to happen is one is going to earn compound interest. So if the market is doing 10%, guess what? They're going to give you 10% on that $5,000. But You need that 5,000 to pay your bills. Remember, we don't want you to get evicted. We don't want you to run out of gas, right? You still need to make it to work tomorrow. So what's going to happen is you can actually borrow against it. Why? Because we just said that this is an asset, okay? So, and it's an appreciating asset. Okay, number two is that that's the way the carrier sees it. So what you can do is you can take out a loan against your cash value, meaning that you can take out a loan and it's going to be from the carrier, right? From the life insurance company. And that money is going to come from them. That money is going to come from their reserves. So your 5,000 is actually going to stay inside of your policy and it's going to stay in your cash value, compounding, making that 10%, right? But you need to be able to pay your bills. So you're going to, one, you're going to borrow, take out a loan, right? So your 5,000 is still going to be in there. And now they're going to issue you a check. So they'll do like a direct deposit or a physical check to you for the 5,000 or whatever is available. So sometimes it's a little bit less. So it could be 4,700. It could be anything like that. Whatever is the maximum that's available or whatever it is that you need to borrow, right? So it's going to be a direct deposit into your bank account. And so now that that money's back into your bank account, then what are you going to do? You're going to go ahead and utilize it for what you need it for, right? Which is mortgage, groceries, utilities, things of that nature, okay? So you're not going to be able to do this fresh when you still, when you just opened up your policy. You have to allow cushion. You have to allow yourself to be building some type of cash value in there first before you can start this concept of paying yourself first. But this really takes a mindset shift. You want to know why? Because you're in the business of building generational wealth, right? So you cannot keep doing the same things that you've always done because you're going to keep getting the same results that you've always gotten. Okay, so it takes you shifting your mind to the point that instead of you paying yourself last now, you decide I'm going to stop that behavior and I'm going to adopt a new behavior. And now I'm going to pay myself first. And I'm actually going to set up a life insurance policy that has cash value to where I could be earning compound interest. That's a position that you need to put yourself in if you're serious about building the generational wealth that's actually going to last generations, okay? So I'm going to talk further about that in just a minute, but I just wanted to quickly touch on real estate. So when it comes to real estate, again, this is an asset, okay? And with this asset, what you want to do is you want to accumulate so many assets to the point that the trust is able to sustain itself. You don't want to be pouring in your W-2 income into the trust, right? The trust needs to stand on its own 2 feet. And so the way that you're going to do that is by putting the trust in position to where it's able to earn cash flow. The way that it's able to earn cash flow is by actually acquiring these assets, primarily real estate, right? So with the real estate, what we do is we actually get debt service ratio loans. Those are loans that are specifically for investment properties, right? So you're going to get investment properties. And with these properties, you are going to be generating the cash flow, right? So with the debt service ratio loans, let's just say they give you 80%, right? Usually it's around 80. So they give you 80% of the purchase price. So now you need to get 20% of the purchase price. How are you going to find the 20%? Well, rewind to when we said OPM, other people's money. That's what you need to do. That's what the millionaires and billionaires do. So you need to actually adopt the same type of tactics, okay? So that means that you're actually going to build credit with the business trust. And that credit is now going to allow you to qualify for credit cards, right? Credit cards and lines of credit. So let's just say that you can get, credit cards of 25, 50, 75,000, 100,000, right? So what's going to happen is you're going to actually utilize that. So let's just say you have a credit card for 50,000. You're going to use that credit card for the business trust that has 50,000 and you're going to use that as that 20%, right? So now you get a debt service ratio loan for 80%. And the 20% is coming from the business credit card. That sounds like 100% to me. So if that's 100% of the purchase price, then you literally purchase this real estate zero down. That is the position that you want to put yourself in by utilizing OPM, other people's money. Now you have a asset that's actually generating cash flow on a monthly basis, right? If you're smart, you'll actually do it on a weekly basis, right? So let's just say that it's on a monthly basis. Well, what's going to happen is now you're generating cash flow. And so that cash flow, what you want to do is you actually want to funnel it through your life insurance policy and then be able to borrow it back out, right? So if you're generating $5,000 a month from this real estate property, right? Before you even decide to pay your business credit card or your mortgage, you're going to park that money into your life insurance policy. Then you're going to borrow it back out and pay the mortgage and the business credit card, okay? That is how you're going to be actually accumulating wealth, because that $5,000 is now earning 10% versus you doing what you were going to do, which is pay the mortgage and the credit card first, and now you would be earning 0% on zero, right? So that is what you're going to do, because now you're going to be in this vicious cycle to where you're going to be accumulating this wealth. So now let's move on to the next thing, which is how to actually transfer the wealth, right? So you are so busy making $1 million, right? But you never stop to think, how am I actually going to transfer this wealth? How am I going to preserve this wealth? That is a question that we never ask ourselves, right? Let's just be honest. So what you need to do is you need to put yourself in the position to where you own nothing but control everything. And I'm going to say that again. You need to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything, right? So that is the definition of stewardship. So that's what you need to do. You need to be a good steward of your wealth. You need to be directing your wealth in a certain growth pathway so that it actually lasts the generations, right? But right now, you are actually operating in ownership, not stewardship. So what that means is you're walking around as this proud owner of, this house and this car and this bank account with $1 million in it, right? And that's all good and dandy. But one, that is not protected, right? And so what you want to do is you have to understand that these assets that you're so proud to be the owner of, they're going to outlive you too. So that house that you actually live in right now, that you're so proud that you're the owner of, that house is going to outlive you, right? Because if you didn't wake up tomorrow, that house is still going to be there. So instead of you actually operating in ownership, what you need to do is you need to operate in stewardship, because now what happens is you actually want control over that asset, right? You want control over that property while you're living, not the label, or not the ability to own it, right? So now you actually want that property to be in the name of the trust, and you actually control it during your life, right? So that's the position that you want to put yourself in. And now let's talk about TCUs. TCU stands for Trust Certificate Units. So with these TCUs, they're identical to stocks. So those stock certificates that you get that represent ownership in a company, it's the same thing. So TCUs represent beneficial interest in a trust, okay? So with that being said, because you have this beneficial interest, it actually, it depends on how many TCUs you have. So for example, if I have, so generally a trust will actually create, let's just say 100 TCUs, right? So now that's going to represent 100% of beneficial interest. And let's just say that I was issued 25 TCUs. That means that I have 25% of beneficial interest in this trust. Let's just say that the trust net worth is $1 million. That means that my beneficial interest is equivalent to $250,000, okay? So that's what that looks like, okay? And the TCUs are issued to your beneficiaries, okay? So now let's move on to preservation, because it's so important. Why? Because it's something that we don't think about. We never even have these conversations of how am I going to preserve my wealth, right? So how many times have we seen athletes, actors, actresses, celebrities, famous families, right? That they get all this money and then they blow it. It doesn't even last the second generation, right? And so the reason is because they don't have the tools in order to actually preserve that wealth, right? So what are the tools? Well, two. One is the trust, which is what I've been telling you guys about. The second one is the cash value life insurance policy, which is what I've been telling you guys about. So, which means that you need these two tools. You need the trust and the life insurance policy to work collectively as a marriage in order to be able to clearly put the things in place in order for you to preserve your wealth. So what does that look like, right? So the trust, right? So the trust has many assets, right? So the trust has physical assets, right? The houses, the cars. The trust has liquid assets, right? The cash, the policies. But then the trust also has human assets, which is you and me. So if the trust has human assets, right, that means that you are the most important person in the trust, right? You're the trustee, you're the beneficiary, right? And so what happens is, right, the trust now actually needs to protect that asset just like the trust protects any other asset, okay? So if anything were to happen to you, the trust would actually be experiencing a loss. So the trust is actually going to take out a policy on you and every single person associated with the trust, right? All the human capital. So you and all of the beneficiaries and all of the future beneficiaries, okay? Why? Because if anything were to happen to you, the trust is experiencing a loss. The trust needs to be compensated for that loss. So what happens is you are the insured, right? So your life is insured, but the trust is the owner of the policy, pays the premium, and is the beneficiary. So now if you didn't wake up tomorrow, guess what happens? The trust is now compensated because that death benefit for $2 million is now going to be deposited into the trust fund, okay? So that means that now the trust is replenished with $2 million, which actually aids in you preserving that wealth that you've been creating for your estate, okay? So that is what you want to do. You want to actually design it this specific way, right? So now, like I said, the trust is going to put out a policy on all of the people associated with the trust. You, the beneficiaries, and the future beneficiaries. So let's just say that there's a beneficiary that was born, right, today. So once that baby is, a couple days old, let's just say 15 to 30 days old, then the trust is going to do an application and put a life insurance policy on that baby, okay? Cash value life insurance policy, specifically index universal life insurance policy, because that baby is 30 days old, right? So now that baby has just become what we call a trust fund baby, okay? So we need to normalize trust fund babies. It is a beautiful thing for you to set up the future generations after you, okay? So now this trust fund baby that is a beneficiary of this trust, right, is now building compound interest on the cash value that from the IUL, Index Universal Life Insurance Policy that was taken out on their life at 30 days. Fast forward into the future, this trust fund baby is now 18 years old, is going off to college, and needs to buy their first car. What's going to happen? Well, normally they're going to go down to the dealership. They're going to go ahead and get a vehicle loan, start, paying. So let's just say the purchase price is $30,000. They're going to start paying $800-900 a month to the actual dealership. Or what they can do is, because they're the beneficiary of a trust, right, they can actually take out a loan from the trust. So trustees and beneficiaries can borrow from the trust and can also lend to the trust. So that beneficiary now comes to the trust and say, I would like a loan for $30,000 so that I could purchase my first vehicle, right? And so what the trustee is going to do is issue them a promissory note saying, hey, you promised to pay us back $30,000 plus 2% interest, right? So, and now hands them a check for $30,000. So now that beneficiary bought that car cash, and instead of paying $900 to the dealership, now they're paying $300 to the trust estate. So now the trust estate is actually earning, a 2% interest off of that loan, which is beautiful, right? So let's just say a year into the future, that beneficiary decides, hey, I don't want to pay this car loan anymore, right? This $300 to the trust. So they default, right? And which is actually detrimental. So what happens is it was actually a risk-free loan. Why? Because the money, right, that $30,000 actually did not come from the trust fund. So it's okay that that beneficiary defaulted on the $30,000 because the money actually came from their index universal life insurance policy. And as we know from the previous slide, if you borrow from the policy, that money comes from the carrier's cash. It doesn't come from the actual cash value in the policy, right? So that 30,000 is actually still inside of the policy, earning compound interest. And what happened was the trustee went out and borrowed against their policy. So that 30,000 was taken out of their cash value life insurance policy, right? But those funds came from the carrier and they did a direct deposit into the trust fund. And then the trustee issued a check for the 30,000 to the beneficiary. So it becomes a risk-free loan because one, it doesn't need to be paid back. And two, it's going to be deducted from the death benefit, which means that once that beneficiary expires or dies, right, what happens? Well, that death benefit goes to the trust fund and the trust is replenished. That is preservation of wealth. That is exactly what you need to be doing if you're intentional about what you're talking about, which is you are walking around here talking about, I'm building generational wealth, right? So you need to have the tools in order to build generational wealth. The tools that you need are a trust and cash value life insurance, right? So with that being said, these are the books that I recommend, right? So I recommend that you guys get What Would the Rockefellers Do? So that's going to teach you guys about how to actually utilize trust and insurance, which is what I've been telling you, in order for you to implement what the Rockefeller family has been doing in order to preserve wealth. Then I recommend that you guys read The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1 and 2. It teaches you about trusteeship, how to actually operate a trust. Then I recommend that you guys actually get Family Wealth. So in Family Wealth, you actually learn how to build a family office, right? Because you want to be actually operating your family like a business. And then the last book is The Complete Book of Trust, which teaches you guys about the different types of trust, right? There's hundreds of different types of trust. So you can do some foundational, research by reading these books, okay? So what you want to do is you want to take action on the information that I provided you guys with today, right? You no longer are this small mom and pop, company or, organization, right? You need to think larger than life. So you need to be treating yourself like you're a Facebook or an Amazon or a Walmart or a Google, right? And so that means that you actually want to be structured the right way. So you want to use these tools that I'm telling you guys about because they can actually solve a lot of your problems, right? It can provide you with exceptional protection for the assets that you have right now, and it can actually help you save a lot on taxes so that you can actually build this wealth, and you can build it efficiently and you can build it effectively, right? So I'm going to show you a quick little video of a trustee that took action on the information that I was telling you guys tonight.
Well, kudos to you all. Again, Christina, it's been a wonderful experience. I've been looking at your videos on YouTube for a while, and there are a number of people offering trust these days, and I guess that's the big thing. Don't own anything, control everything. That kind of, I didn't say it correctly, but that is the sentiment. And so it seems like the playing field is being leveled now from the rich and people who weren't privy to this information. So thank you for being such a great asset to a community that didn't have this information. And you made it so simple. Thank you for the recordings. Thank you for the step-by-step instructions. things that we can go back and look at. So we do appreciate you, and thank you, Mondo.
All right, guys. So what you want to do is let's work together, right? So I actually do have a program where I teach you the foundational information that you guys need in order to get this structure set up, right? So you can either do it yourself. So with do it yourself, it's actually a course, and with the course what we have is 43 video modules. And what you're going to do is you're going to watch the modules, which teaches you and breaks down the contents of the trust, teaches you how to actually set it up. You're going to download the trust templates, and then you're going to be able to create your trust, right? And so it comes with the 3 trust templates that I told you about: the business trust, the private family trust, and the tax-exempt nonprofit trust, okay? So you actually do get lifetime access to this course, plus all the resources and ebooks that I spoke about. We also have a private Facebook community, you guys. So in our private Facebook community, we have hundreds of trustees in that community. So these are like-minded individuals that have already gone through the process that you're about to go through. So you can use them as resources. You can ask your questions there. You can network with individuals who are already trustees and actually be in this community. We also have a Telegram chat as well, where you guys can chat back and forth, and we have a lot of like notifications and stuff like that. So we're constantly doing Q&As. We do live meetups and master classes. Okay, so with that being said, the do-it-yourself is only $997, and like I said, you get lifetime access. The second option is done with you, you guys. So with done with you, it's 5 group Zoom calls. So what we do is we do it a week long, Monday through Friday. So on Monday, we go through the business trust, and then we dive into Q&A. Tuesday, we go through the family trust, and then we dive into Q&A. Wednesday, we go through the faith-based organization, the tax-exempt trust, and then we dive into Q&A. Thursday, we apply for our EINs. We have board meetings, right? So that's one valuable thing, because a lot of us are operating entities and not actually having meetings, right? So we have board meetings, we do promissory notes so that you can actually open up a bank account for your trust, and you can document how much you're going to actually put inside of this trust. And then we have a guest speaker that comes in and teaches us about the business credit, right? The business credit and funding, so that you can get funding for your trust and you don't have to use your own money, okay? So we put you in that position. And then on Friday, we actually focus on transferring assets and infinite banking. So if you are transferring a house, then we provide you with a quick claim deed and we show you how to fill it out. If you're transferring a car, then we provide you with the bill of sale and we teach you how to actually fill it out and where to submit it. If you are putting a business into the business trust, then we teach you how to fill out the business purchase agreement so you could transfer all your ownership and liability, as well as how to do the amendments with the Secretary of State, okay? And then we go into infinite banking. So everything that I just taught you about insurance, about the index universal life, the whole life, the cash value, preserving your wealth. So we have our infinite banking specialists come in and teach you guys about the different policies, how to set it up, how to have your trust be the owner, payer, and beneficiary of the policies, so that you can actually utilize that tool to preserve your wealth, okay? So the classes are 11 to 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and the next class is going to be June 24th to the 28th, okay? And then, like I said, you get the 3 trusts. You also get the course. You get unlimited assistance, and then you get the sense of security that your trust is being set up the right way. And you get to be in a space with other individuals where they are asking questions that you didn't even know you wanted to know. So it is highly, very valuable for you to be in that space with those other individuals. And then the last, and the workshop is only $2,500. And then the last option is do it one-on-one. where we do private sessions. And so usually this is for individuals who have multiple assets, who have a very unique schedule, things like that. And so they want individualized support in order to customize their trust, okay? And so the private sessions are only $10,000. So that is the options that you guys get to choose from if you want to get started the right way and actually change the trajectory of your life and your children's life if you guys intentional about building that wealth that actually lasts generations. Because now your children, you're going to be raising them as trustees, right? And now you're actually changing their, the trajectory of their life to where they are now going to be taking over as your successor versus whatever situation you have going on now, right? So that's what you definitely want to do. And then here is my contact information. Let's see if it goes there. Yep. So here's the contact information. So you guys can go to the website, wealthytrustee.com, and there you're able to enroll into the program. So for the individuals that I have on this call, you guys, what I'll do is I will give 20% off in the next 24 hours. So if you're interested in getting a discount, then you want to, act quick. And so all you have to do is go to the website and use the discount code TRUST20, and you can enjoy 20% off in the next 24 hours. So you can, if you have any questions, you can call us, you can email, you can also visit us on social media. So now what I want to do is I want to show you what the actual course looks like, and then we can dive into Q&A. So let's see here. One second. All right, so this is what the actual course looks like. So like I said, there's 43 video modules. So we start with the introduction, then you go straight into trust entity, where you actually learn what a trust is, the different parties involved, like the grantors, trustee, beneficiaries, successors, protectors, the benefits and different types of trust. Then you get into setting up the tax exempt trust. So with this one, you learn about the different sections of the trust, the bylaws, how to actually set it up, how to apply for the EIN number. Then you learn about the private family trust, how to set it up, how to apply for the EIN number. Same thing with the business trust. And then you learn about tax strategies, like how to operate tax exempt with the tax exempt trust, how to apply for, exempt status, the difference between the different types of trust, things like that. And then you learn about asset protection. So the first thing you need to do is actually take an inventory of your assets to know what assets are going to go inside the trust and what assets are going to remain outside of the trust. Then we teach you how to actually open up a bank account, a brokerage account, how to transfer your house, your car, your insurance policies, your business ownership, and do board meetings. And then we go into wealth creation, where you learn how to build credit for the trust, how to invest it in the stock market using index funds, and how to do infinite banking with the life insurance policy. And then we go into wealth preservation, where you learn what a legacy crest is so that you can use it for your legacy and your trust. And then the last thing we have is the resources and the ebooks. So with the resources, we have a bunch of templates, like if you want to do a board meeting, if you need to file taxes, if you want to create credit, things like that. We have all those resources available for you. And then we have ebooks available for you as well. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor for Q&A. I know I've been talking for an hour and a half. So if anybody has any questions, please go ahead and come off of mute, raise your hand. Let me know what questions that you have so that I can answer them. And then I'll also go look in the chat. So any questions on any of the information that I went over today? Any questions? I must have been very thorough if there's no questions. Let me check on YouTube. And then let me check in the chat here. So Javier said, you in Miami? Yes, I'm in Miami, and the weather is bad. It's raining. So, and then our life insurance agent or specialist, she is in the chat. So she is able to answer any questions that you guys might have regarding life insurance. But it looks like she's been doing that already, which is awesome. So you guys are in good hands. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have us drop the links. So Ika, can you drop the links? There she goes. She's quick with it. All right, so I could just drop the links. So if you guys want the replay to this webinar, then you can go visit our YouTube. So you can just go ahead and type 7 Ways to Wealth. So the number 7 Ways to Wealth. And then you will see the latest live, which is the one that we're doing today. So you can go to the link that's in the chat if you guys want to, and click on that link and rewatch the webinar, okay? So if you guys are interested in getting more information about the cash value life insurance policy or the index universal life insurance policy that I was explaining today, then go ahead and click on the link that you see in the chat to book a call with our insurance partner, okay? So she is so thorough. She will be able to look at your specific financial situation and give you, you know, a snapshot of how you can utilize this tool in order to start building wealth and to start protecting yourself, okay? So if you guys want to book a call with me, you can go ahead and click on that link as well to book a call with me. And then our website again is wealthytrustee.com. So like I said, we are giving 20% off to the individuals that are on this call. So you can use the discount code TRUST20 when you visit the website in order for you to take action and actually get into the program for a discounted rate. If you know that you want to get into the program, but you don't have like the funds available now, then what you can do is you can actually put a deposit down. The deposit is only $200, and then that will hold your spot so that you're able to get it for the 20% off. So I will go ahead and put that link. Let me see. Do we have? Yep. Okay. So it's in the link. So the link is in the chat if you guys are wanting to secure your spot for the 20% off. You can put a $200 deposit, and then that will actually put you in a position, and then you can go ahead and pay off the balance or roll into a payment plan. So we do have payment plans available as well. You will see that on our website as well. So you can go down to either the frequently asked questions, or you can go into join now, and then you'll see the payment plan options. So any other questions? Any other questions? So how do I request a call with you? So you could book a call. So here's the link in order to book a call with me. Thank you so much. Nicole? No. Okay. All right. Any other questions? If not, then we are going to end this evening. So any other last questions? All right, perfect. So you guys, thank you so much for being here tonight. Like I said, you can go ahead and access the replay on our YouTube channel, 7 Ways to Wealth. And if you're watching on YouTube, then you can go ahead to the description box below and you can get all of the links that I've been describing, okay? So I look forward to welcoming you guys into the program and for you guys to take action on the information that I shared with you guys tonight, okay? Because you guys are what we call generational curse breakers. So you're here for a reason, and it is for you to get this information, implement it, and break those financial curses that are on your family, and now actually, you know, change the lineage, right? So change the life of all of the individuals that are now going to be within the estate that you're actually creating, you guys. So with that being said, you guys have an amazing evening, and I will see you guys